We're talking Virginia Tech Hokies today on Sharpen the Point. Last season, a disappointing 6-7 year given the preseason hype and expectations that they had coming into it. I know I bet their win total over, and that was a quick early defeat there. Head coach Brent Pry enters his fourth season, now firmly on the hot seat, and rightfully so given the talent he has had to work with in this team and the relative wins that have been produced by comparison. Offensive coordinator, they make a change with Philip Montgomery coming in with his first season. He was a former Auburn offensive coordinator, but he's most known for his time as the offensive coordinator for Art Briles at Baylor from 2008 to 2014. And the defensive coordinator, they make another change with Sam Seifkes. He's his first season, former linebacker coach in the NFL, and we'll see what they can do with potentially a lame duck coach. Quarterback Kyron Drones enters his third season as a starter, coming off of a precipitous drop-off in production, particularly by comparison to the lofty expectations that were placed upon him. He was a guy that I thought could win the Heisman potentially last year if everything came together, hoping that he could break out somewhere to like a Lenora Sellers year, but that did not happen, with him only managing one good passing game on the entire season in the opener at 322-yard, 2-touchdown game against Vandy. And then no other appearance he had more than 200 passing yards. Just an absolutely awful year. Then on the ground, in his dual threat ability, he had one standout game against Old Dominion. No shock there with 117 yards and a touchdown, but he was otherwise inconsequential with his rushing. We could point to his health as the reason for improved play this year because he was banged up for much of last year. We just have not seen him consistently perform whatsoever. Maybe Montgomery can help unlock Drones even more, though, as the tools are there for him to make a giant leap this season. Behind him, Pop Watson and Colin Schlee, they split time when Drones was out of the lineup. Schlee's is gone now. Watson, he just struggled mightily in his appearances last year, routinely just taking too many bad sacks. I can remember him just running backwards and getting smoked every time he tried to spin out of it. And he just showed little to zero pocket awareness whatsoever. I personally would not rule out Garrett Rangel. He's the Oklahoma State transfer, passing Watson on the depth chart, as he is a better fit for this Montgomery system. Running back wise, Bashal Tutin, he did his best to carry the offense on his back last season with over 1,150 yards rushing, 17 total touchdowns. He was the focal point of the offense and really the only consistent way they could move the football last year. Defense is keyed in on him, and he still was able to put up those numbers. That's why he was a higher draft pick in the NFL. With him now off to the NFL with the Jaguars, they hit the portal and brought in 3 transfers which can match the production of Tutin, not individually but as a collective. Terrion Stewart comes in from Bowling Green. Braden Bennett, one of my favorites from Coastal Carolina. And Marcellus Hawkins, he comes up from Central Missouri. Stewart, he's a bowling ball. He breaks tackles. He's a little smaller guy, right, at 5'9", 200 plus pounds. He's really capable of handling a heavy workload. I'd expect him to see the most carries of the group, particularly in between the tackles, but he's not going to see the overall workload that Tutin had. Bennett, meanwhile, he's an intriguing addition for me. I was high on him early in his early seasons at Coastal. He's a big frame, over 6 foot, 220 plus. He's an explosive rusher with that size too, and he's a receiver, or good receiver, out of the backfield, capable of really taking any touch to the house. He just never was able to get a full workload as he could not stay healthy and stay on the field at Coastal. He's going to pair nicely with Stewart as someone capable of winning in open space and breaking off chunk plays, which is kind of interesting considering, frame-wise, you would think Stewart's more likely to be the explosive guy with Bennett being more of the bruiser, but it's really the opposite. Bennett is just an absolute animal if you could get him in open space, just blowing through people. Pass catcher-wise, the top 4 of Stephen Gosnell, Jalen Lane, Ollie Jennings, and Daquan Felton are all gone. They deserve to have better numbers than they had a year ago with their talent, specifically to me, Jennings, who I felt he would have been a difference maker if he had been able to stay healthy during his time with Virginia Tech. Once he came over from Old Dominion, he just never was able to be on the field consistently. He started out great before he tore that knee up and then just never recovered. The portal, once again, was utilized to replenish the top of the room with the additions of Donovan Green from Wake Forest, Cam Seldon from Tennessee, and Isaiah Spencer from Jackson State. Green's the safest bet in the room as he brings a ton of playing experience in his 6th year now and knows what it takes to succeed in this conference, having played for Wake for so long. But he does come with an injured past, having missed 2 full seasons previously. Seldon, he is transitioning from running back to wide receiver. He's a bigger guy, but they're thinking that they can use him in the slot as a big slot option, get the ball to him quick, get him out there in space to be able to run guys over. And he really impressed in the spring game with a 3 for 65 and 1 line. Spencer, though, he's a good route runner with plenty of experience playing out of the slot, so I expect you to see Spencer and Seldon kind of mix and matching in that slot role. The top returning wide receiver is going to be Aiden Green. He had 19 catches last year. That's kind of his experience to this point. Reports are he looks poised to take a big step forward this year as an athletic freak primed to break out. I'd expect him to man an outside starting role with Green, and he has a shot to be the top target overall. Benji Gosnell, he's going to return as the top tight end option. He's going to provide a reliable target for drones. He has good chemistry with him already, and he's got the upside for at least 40 catches, maybe even to hit that 50 mark. Offensive line, the line's a massive question mark as 57 of the 60 starts made last season are now gone. And that may not be a bad thing, given how they performed a year ago, routinely giving up pressure on the quarterback and just getting those guys popped left, right, and center. The new line coach, Matt Moore, he comes over from West Virginia, and he brought some guys with him that can contribute. Dion would say he brought his Louis. 2 of those guys, Thomas Remick and Kyle Altuner, I would expect those guys to start right away. Remick is now the clear best lineman in the room. And he mostly played at guard for West Virginia, but I think he bumps out the tackle in order to take advantage of his skill set. Altuner, he's definitely the best option at center, and he's really been a tone setter for these guys up front during the spring. Who's starting and where they line up really is going to end up being anyone's guess at this point. Moore is really big on guys who can play multiple positions and have versatility so that he can mix and match to find the best possible unit. So I think he's going to be doing that up until week 1 and even into the early part of the season. Along the D-line, they lose their top 4, including Antoine Powell-Ryland and Aeneas Peebles. They were big difference makers. Powell-Ryland, he had 16 sacks last year. It's going to be impossible to replace him. So it's going to need to be a group effort from the portal guys, and there's plenty of them that they added. Ben Bell comes over from Texas State, and James Jonkum, he comes from Eastern Michigan. They're going to be the top options off the edge. Bell is a seasoned pass rusher who can make an impact right away, and he had a double-digit sack season in 2023. Jonkum, he transitioned from linebacker to defensive end, and he loves that move as he now does not have to really think anymore. He can instead kind of use his instincts and use the see ball, get ball mentality to make big plays off the edge. Returners Kelvin Gillum and Kamari Copeland, they're going to begin the year as the starters in the middle, but that's a deep room that will have a heavy rotation. Copeland only played in 4 games last year before a season-ending injury knocked him out, but he's back healthy. And then transfers Emmanuel Hickman from South Florida and Cody Huseman from North Dakota State. They're going to factor in heavily. They're going to be good in that center as far as the rotation goes. Linebacker-wise, top 2, Caleb Woodson, Jaden Keller. They return after making 18 starts between them, with Keller leading the team in tackles last year. They will be pushed, though, as there's some transfers that were brought in to deepen the room, specifically Jordan Bass from Pitt. He's likely to be the main one challenging those 2 for snaps. As a former highly touted recruit, he's really battled injuries and off-field issues in his past. If he can kind of stay on the field and keep his head in the game, he could really make an impact there. There's plenty of depth here in the linebacking core that the increased competition could really shake things up if some of those guys adapt to this scheme quicker than others. In the defensive back room, There's more loss on the back end, like the rest of the defense, as Dorian Strong goes pro. Keontae Jenkins, he graduated. Mansour Delane goes to LSU. Mose Phillips heads to Missouri. Once again, they utilize the portal heavily to restock the ranks, picking up a bunch of starting caliber players here. Tyson Flowers, he comes from Rice. He's almost certainly going to man one safety spot from day one. And he had a great spring and could easily push for a captain spot right away, which is not easy to do with a transfer, but given the number of transfers, makes sense. The other safety spot's really going to come down to incumbent Quentin Reddish, who returns after a promising first season where he had some game time. His main competition looks to be Isaiah Cash from Sam Houston and Christian Ellis from New Mexico. Each of Cash and Ellis have had productive careers thus far, so it could make sense to let Reddish grow a little bit and learn some more from those more experienced guys rather than throwing him straight into the fire. Isaiah Brown Murray, he comes over from East Carolina. He's going to be the starter at that star/nickel spot. He's a sure tackler who can cover well, making him an ideal fit for that role. And then on the corner spots, the top two look to be Dante Lovett and Caleb Brown. Caleb Brown coming in from Hawaii. Lovett is a rising star to me. He just needs to continue his ascension to reach his ceiling. And then Brown brings a ton of experience with him. He's not assured to stay in that top two, though. Thomas Williams will be breathing down his neck, looking to make the most of the opportunities he gets to prove he should be a starter. They do not have a ton of stars in this back end, but there is enough in the room to think they can still be a productive unit. Looking at the schedule and outlook for this year, on offense, the line and quarterback play just flat out need to be better. If Drones does not take that next step, then Pry is really headed for the unemployment line, in my opinion. I have confidence in the running backs, and I even feel okay with the weapons on the outside, although they are less talented than last year's group overall. The defense, it's going to be salty as usual. That's what this team's been built on for a number of decades going on at this point. But there is a lot of turnover, so they need to gel in order to avoid a drop-off. The versatility is going to be important to get odd looks and create opportunities to take the ball away and create negative plays. Schedule-wise, South Carolina, I think this is the loss to Baby Beamer. He has the cocks rolling, Sellers is just a much better version of Drones. He's what we thought Drones could be. They lost a ton of talent on that South Carolina defense, but they're still going to be good. That's a tough way to start the year. Vanderbilt, that's a coin flip game, right? I can't get last year's game out of my head. They should have beat them last year, but there was just far too many mistakes. They got in too big of a hole early. I would lean win. I think they take care of business in this one, but I'm still shaken up from last year's game to guarantee such a thing. Old Dominion, they always seem to play with their food too much against Old Dom, right? They should beat them year in, year out. Old Dom, not a great program to this point. It should be a win, but you got to stop playing with your food here, right? Wofford, easy win at North Carolina State. I'm leaning loss here. And I think it's a coin flip like the Vanderbilt game, but I think Bailey, their quarterback, CJ Bailey, might be an even better version of Drones and be younger. They're very similar teams, the way they're built. Dave Dorn is one heck of a coach. I think he can outcoach Pry. Wake Forest, win. At Georgia Tech, loss. Georgia Tech is returning a ton, and they're going to be good. Cal, win. They're terrible. Louisville, Cardinals, it's odd stat here. It's their first trip to Blacksburg since joining the ACC nearly a decade ago, basically. I'm going to lean loss. I think Louisville is going to be a good program and compete for the title here. At Florida State, can the defense hold up against that Malzahn run game? They have a talented running back room, a quarterback who can run the heck out of the ball. The question is really, has Florida State quit again on the team, on the coaching staff by this point? I would lean coin flip here because I think it's literally a 50-50 chance that Florida State has quit on the season by this point. Miami, I'll say loss. They have too much talent overall, and anyone from last year's team of Miami is going to remember that game and want to avenge that a little bit. At Virginia. This one pains me a bit as somebody who grew up in Virginia. Virginia just cannot beat Virginia Tech. It's just not possible. They haven't done it really at all since Matt Schaub. They've done it once since Matt Schaub was the freaking quarterback. And I'm going to say win until I see Virginia actually win a game against Virginia Tech. Really, for me, the question is what the number of wins that keeps Pry employed at this point. 5 wins is the floor, but I doubt that keeps him employed here. 7 seems like a more realistic number, and that would likely buy him one more year, but that seat's still going to remain hot.